This chapter talks about the most important method you will learn in chemistry. This is a method kind of like when people got into math and they learned a method, Common Core, different methods of solving problems. Same idea, you're learning a method. You're going to want to work it a different way because it's always hard to learn new methods. But what this method does is it makes it so that word problems are so much easier because you're not trying to match all these different things together. They're just very calm when you work them, and you just take one number and you just start matching units. It's like playing a little memory game. If you remember that memory game when you were a kid and you're just trying to match for the unit. That's what it is. It's not reading through a problem and try to plan ahead how to solve it. So there's a lot of words for this. And if you've had chemistry before, I've got an example. The textbook calls it dimensional analysis. Other textbooks will call it factor label, unit conversion. You might see all of this terminology. I've even heard some people call it train tracks because it kind of looks like train tracks. What you will learn how to do or how to do it is first you're going to find the number that you start with. You use diagonals to change to other units. And we have charts that will help. In fact, one of the main charts you're going to want to use is at the front of the periodic chart. Is at the front of this chapter. And then after you get all the units in place, you have to fill in the numbers. Now, if you are proficient with metrics, you're going to naturally just jump to the answer. And I would encourage you not to do that because we're not really trying to teach people how to do metrics. We have a chart to help with that. What we're trying to do is use metrics to teach this method of math. Factor label is the method. The idea is to answer the problems with less thinking. This is how it looks. It'll have this kind of a look where things are separated with these time symbols, and it kind of looks like you're doing fractions. When you put it in a calculator, it's like this number times this number times this number times this number divided by this number divided by this divided by this. Because it's math, you can do it in any order too. You can do the top number and then divided by this times this, divided by this times this, divided by this times. You can do that. But I kind of recommend being very, very consistent and going across first and then going and doing the bottom ones because it's easy to miss things if you don't do it the same way every time. This also can have another look to it, and you will see professors doing it both ways. Oops. So whenever you have this like break where they all meet each other, that's like saying times, times, and times. And everything else is the same. I tend to use this method because it feels neater to me. I don't accidentally start sloping down the page, which is what can happen when I don't have one solid line going across. We'll show you how to work it in the next section, but we're going to talk about the calculator for just a minute. We have a calculator suggestion, and if you like the digital ones, this one's only $5. It's an app, and it works very much like TIs if that's what you like and you don't have a TI. However, all these different iPads and everything, they come with calculator apps. Just make sure that you have something that has an E key. You can also just use a regular old calculator. It's fine. We want to look at the E key, though. They're in different places. And there's a video in the extra videos that kind of talks through all the different calculators and where to find your E key. So you should look for that in the videos if you're wondering. So right here, this EE is how it often looks, and that's how it looks here on this calculator. There's a little EE right there. It's a second function, so you have to push second, and then you push this whole button, and it gives you that. Other calculators will have a key just on the keyboard that says EXP. What the E key does is it makes it so that you don't have to deal as much with parentheses when you have denominators. And it makes it so that you're typing in less things. You also want to be aware of the difference between the negative key and the subtraction key. And I know that sounds obvious, but look, in most of them, the negative key has a little parentheses around it, whereas this is the subtraction key. Your calculator cares a lot whether you're using the negative key or the subtraction key. In chemistry, most of the time you're using the negative key, not the subtraction key. So what I've done is I've taken this top number set up here, and I've started with how you would normally maybe just put it in the calculator if you didn't know about the E key. So you would put a 1 in, and so here's the 1 right up here. So this top line matches with this. You'd put a 1 in, and then you'd put the times symbol, so times, and then you put in the, well, you would actually put in this, a 1, and then you'd use multiply, and then you use 10, and then the negative key, and then the minus 2. You see it up here? So 1 times 10 to the minus 2 is that. Then you're going to use, you can keep saying times 1 and times 1 because that's what's on top. So the other ones are on top. And then we're going to go and we're going to look at the bottom. So we can have a 1 on the bottom. Actually, we didn't put that one in. It's this 1 times 10 to the third. Because when we divide by 1, it's 1. And then over here, here's 1 times 10 to the third. And then we have 1.6. So this is how you would probably start putting this in. I want to note something. You will notice that there is a parentheses. You have to use a parentheses. Anytime you're dealing with the section on the bottom here, you have to use a parentheses if you're going to do parentheses that times that times that on the bottom. Has to have a parentheses. There's another way you can do it though. You can also use divided by signs. So this is another way to do it, and I just want to point out that this way you would only put this section in parentheses. So what this says is that you're taking the bottom section, and you've already got all these top numbers multiplied, and then you're going to say divided by this number in parentheses, and then divided by this number. That's what this is saying. There's the divided, and there's the divided by. Right here. That's the divided key, and then that's the divided by. And look, it gives you the same answer. All 4 of these are going to give you the same answer. You can play around with it. You should play around with it with your calculator. So, well, what about trying to do other things? Okay. This way is a much faster way of solving it. As we're working our way down, we're getting them easier and easier. So you can use the E key. So the E key represents this. Oops. So you'll notice this right here, or you can say this right here, and that is covered here. And then you'll see that this is all you have to write down, and the front number. So instead you're pushing the 1, the EE key, the negative key, and the 2. Up here you're pushing the 1, the times, the 1, the 0, the raised 2, the negative key, and the 2. Do you see how many more pushes that has? And then what about when you're dealing with the next number? Again, this is 1, the EE key, and then 3. This is 1, the times, the 1, the 10, the raised 2 key, and then the 3. So this is less writing. But the very least amount of writing is this one right here. This is where we use this idea of divided by signs. When you use EE, it knows to keep these grouped, and you don't have to put a parentheses around them. When you don't use EE, it doesn't know to keep it grouped. And so you have to group it with parentheses. I recommend trying to put this in your calculator. Make sure, first of all, that you're getting these numbers, and then make sure you're comfortable with how you're going to do it. If you can't get it in the calculator and get these answers, you need to talk to me and try to get it figured out.